An ambassador sacked, not for incompetence, for ties to a convicted child sex offender, and a prime minister refusing to take responsibility. Westminster erupted this week when Kemi Badenoch stood at the dispatch box demanding answers about Peter Mandelson's appointment as U.S. ambassador. The silence from labor benches said everything. This wasn't political theater. This was about judgment, priorities, and a government that promised integrity but keeps delivering scandal. Mandelson's connections to Jeffrey Epstein weren't secret. Private island visits, exclusive parties, documented links to a man convicted of trafficking minors. The security services knew. The Foreign Office knew. Yet Starmer pushed the appointment through anyway. And when pressure mounted, when the evidence became undeniable, Mandelson was sacked. But Starmer still won't explain why he made that choice in the first place. Badenoch laid out 3 non-negotiable demands. Publish the Mandelson-Epstein files in full. Every email, every briefing, every security warning that was ignored. Second, apologize directly to Epstein's victims. Real people who suffered real abuse while the political elite protected their own. Third, someone must take responsibility. Not junior ministers making excuses, not advisors hiding behind procedure, the Prime Minister himself. But Starmer wasn't even there. He sent others to defend the indefensible while staying away from Parliament. That's become the pattern. Hide when pressure builds, dodge when questions get difficult, blame others when truth emerges. Badenoch called it exactly what it is, a prime minister with no courage, no judgment, no backbone. The numbers tell their own story. Labor's trust rating collapsed to 19%. Protests grew outside Downing Street overnight. Not organized activists, ordinary people, parents, workers, pensioners furious that their government protects the connected while ignoring everyone else. Social media exploded with accountability demands, not just from opposition supporters, from labor voters too, because this connects to everything else going wrong. Pensioners losing winter fuel payments while millions fund luxury migrant hotels. NHS waiting lists hitting records while ministers attend exclusive parties. Families choosing between heating and eating while the elite network with convicted criminals. The contrast couldn't be sharper. People are noticing. Badenoch pressed harder on the vetting question. 3 possibilities exist. First, security services failed completely. But nobody believes MI5 missed Mandelson's Epstein connections when they're public knowledge. Second, advisors hid information from Starmer. If that happened, it's incredibly serious. Which advisor? Why haven't they resigned? Third, and most likely, Starmer knew everything and appointed Mandelson anyway. Reports now confirm he overruled security advice. Multiple sources saying the warnings were clear and he ignored them. Why would he do that? Because Mandelson has connections, opens doors, knows the right people. Protecting the club mattered more than protecting standards. That's not leadership. That's complicity in maintaining an elite system that puts insiders first. The timeline destroys Starmer's defense. Last Wednesday at Prime Minister's questions, he stood at the dispatch box, expressing full confidence in his ambassador. Labour MPs cheered. They clapped and celebrated. But Starmer already knew about the compromising emails. He'd been briefed, he had the information, and he chose to mislead Parliament anyway. That wasn't a mistake. That was a deliberate choice to protect a political ally over being honest with the British public. When truth emerged days later, when the appointment became untenable, did Starmer apologize for misleading the House? No. He disappeared while junior ministers cleaned up his mess. Morgan McSweeney's role raises even more questions. Starmer's chief of staff reportedly spent hours on the phone with Mandelson last week. Hours. At the exact same time, Mandelson was dodging Foreign Office calls. What were they discussing? Why was the Prime Minister's top advisor prioritizing damage control for Mandelson over transparency with officials who needed answers? Labor ministers now claim new information came to light, information they didn't have before, but the timeline doesn't support that. Mandelson's Epstein connections were documented for years, reported in media, discussed openly. The idea that government vetting missed all of it is absurd. Badenoch highlighted the broader pattern. Anti-corruption minister sacked for corruption. Housing secretary sacked for dodging housing tax. Transport secretary sacked for fraud. Now a U.S. ambassador sacked for ties to a child sex offender. This isn't bad luck. This is systematic failure. A government that can't vet appointments, won't hold standards, protects insiders while lecturing everyone else about integrity. The victims deserve better. Women and girls abused by Epstein and his network deserve an apology. They deserve a government that takes their suffering seriously. Instead, they got a prime minister who appointed someone connected to their abuser to one of Britain's most sensitive diplomatic roles, then defended that decision until pressure became unbearable. The international damage spreads fast. Trump's team already questioning the appointment publicly. Trade negotiations stalling because Washington won't work with someone connected to Epstein. Britain's reputation taking hits from allies who can't believe this decision was made. The special relationship isn't so special when your ambassador carries this baggage. Labor backbenchers feel it acutely now. Constituents asking impossible questions. How do you defend this? How do you explain voting confidence in someone with these connections? How do you look victims' families in the eye and say your party did the right thing? You can't. The silence during Badenoch's speech showed they know it. Badenoch asked about Tony Blair's influence. Did Mandelson's old network pull strings behind the scenes? Was this about rewarding loyalty over merit? The minister couldn't answer, or wouldn't. Either way, silence speaks volumes about how decisions really get made in this government. The vetting process needs investigation. How did someone with Mandelson's documented connections get cleared for such a sensitive role? Security services don't make casual errors at this level, which means either they flagged concerns and were overruled, or the process was corrupted from the start. Neither option is acceptable. Consider implications for every other appointment this government made. If they couldn't properly vet the U.S. ambassador, what about other sensitive positions? National security advisors, intelligence chiefs, defense officials? The rot could go deeper than anyone realizes. Starmer's refusal to investigate properly suggests he doesn't want to know. Media's role deserves scrutiny. For weeks, friendly outlets ran puff pieces about Mandelson's diplomatic skills, his connections, his Washington navigation abilities. They ignored the Epstein connection entirely, buried it, dismissed anyone raising concerns as partisan troublemakers. Only when evidence became overwhelming did they pivot to covering the scandal. That's not journalism. That's public relations. Public anger builds across the country, not just traditional conservative voters. Lifelong labor supporters are furious. They voted for change, for integrity, for a government putting people first. Instead, they got more elite protection. Different faces, same corrupt system. The betrayal cuts deeper because expectations were higher. Reform UK capitalizes quickly. Nigel Farage calling this Labour's defining scandal. The moment the mask came off. His party's polling climbs as disillusioned Labour voters seek alternatives. By-elections loom. If this scandal stays in headlines, Labour could face devastating losses in supposedly safe seats. Economic context makes everything worse. Rachel Reeves just delivered a budget raising taxes on working families while cutting pensioner support. Growth projections down. Business confidence collapsing, investment fleeing abroad. And in this economic crisis, Starmer's government is consumed by self-inflicted scandal about protecting elite insiders. That's the core issue. Priority. What matters most to this government? Helping struggling families or protecting powerful friends? Supporting victims or shielding those connected to abusers? The answer becomes clearer daily, and it's not what Labour promised during the campaign. Badenoch's speech wasn't just opposition theatrics. It was moral reckoning. She forced Labour MPs to confront what their government has become, to see themselves as the public sees them. Defenders of the indefensible, protectors of privilege, everything they claimed to oppose. 3 questions remain unanswered. What exactly did Starmer know when making the appointment? Why did he overrule security advice? Who else in his government knew about Mandelson's Epstein connections? Until those questions get honest answers, this scandal won't end. Pressure will keep building. Demands for accountability will get louder. Britain deserves leaders with judgment, with integrity, with courage to admit mistakes and take responsibility. What we're seeing is the opposite. A prime minister who appoints wrong people, ignores warnings, defends the indefensible, then hides when accountability arrives. That's not governance. That's leadership crisis. And it's not going away. Every new detail damages Starmer further. Every non-answer erodes trust more. Every day without transparency confirms Badenoch's accusation. A government of sleaze and scandal breaking every promise made. The British public are watching. They're judging. And they won't forget. This is Labour's reckoning, the moment rhetoric meets reality. The test.